I never planned to reveal my success at my brother Marcus's wedding. For years, I'd perfected the art of silence, smiling politely at family dinners, nodding through backhanded compliments, and listening to them praise Marcus as the star of the family. Meanwhile, I built an empire in secret. I didn't crave their approval anymore. But sometimes, life has a way of testing how much you can endure before the truth demands to be seen. That test came on the day Marcus married Jessica Cole, the CEO's daughter, a match that had turned my parents giddy with pride. The Grand Plaza Hotel gleamed like a palace that evening. Golden chandeliers shimmered above a sea of crystal glassware and silk gowns. Waiters moved gracefully between tables, their silver trays laden with champagne and caviar. Everything about the scene screamed wealth, ambition, and showmanship, Marcus's three favorite things. I stood at the edge of the ballroom, my navy dress deliberately modest, my hair in a simple twist. I had dressed down intentionally, a quiet contrast to the noise of diamonds and designer labels that surrounded me. It wasn't insecurity, it was strategy. Sometimes, power works best when no one sees it coming. Ah, there you are. My mother's voice sliced through the music like a knife. She glided toward me, elegant and severe, her gown a deep shade of burgundy that shimmered under the lights. Her eyes flicked over my outfit, the corners of her mouth tightening ever so slightly. "Why aren't you mingling?" she asked, her tone filled with irritation masked as concern. "Everyone's been asking about you." Then, before I could answer, she added in a lower voice, "Though I suppose there's not much to tell." I smiled faintly, swirling the champagne in my glass. I thought of the boardroom from the previous day, the tension in the air, the applause after I announced the acquisition of our largest competitor. My name had been on the headlines that morning, though under my company's banner, not my own. "I'm doing fine, Mom," I said lightly. "The consulting work keeps me busy." "Busy isn't the same as successful," she replied, her sigh dramatic enough to draw attention from the guests nearby. "You should learn from your brother, youngest VP in Sterling Industries history, and now marrying into the CEO's family. That's what real success looks like." I hid a smirk behind my glass. If only you knew. Sterling Industries had been bleeding money for months. Their board was desperate for help. Desperate enough to court Aurora Consulting, the firm they thought was led by an anonymous CEO. Me. My mother kept talking, oblivious to the irony. "You know, I sometimes worry about you, Sophie. All that education, all that potential, and yet, no husband, no family name, no real prestige, just consulting." I opened my mouth to respond, but before I could, a familiar booming voice interrupted. "Sophie, there you are." Marcus, of course. His entrance was grand, as always. He strolled over with his trademark grin, his arm around Jessica, who looked like she'd stepped out of a luxury magazine spread. Every strand of her hair was perfect, her diamond earrings catching the light like tiny suns. She looked at me with the polite pity of someone used to being admired. "Still hiding in corners, sis?" Marcus teased. "Some things never change." Jessica gave a tinkling laugh. "Oh, Marcus told me all about your little consulting job. It's so cute that you're trying to make it on your own." I smiled thinly. "Cute, that's a new one." Marcus smirked. "Well, someone's got to do the small jobs, right? Poor sis, still plugging away at that tiny firm while the rest of us climb the ladder. But hey, at least you're independent." His voice was loud enough for nearby guests to overhear. I saw a few of them glance our way, curiosity flickering in their eyes. I took a slow breath, reminding myself I had nothing to prove, to him or anyone else. "I'm happy with where I am," I said simply. He chuckled. "Sure you are. Speaking of success, guess who's attending tonight? Mr. Harrison himself, the CEO of Sterling Industries. He never goes to employee weddings, but for me." Marcus puffed up his chest, pride oozing from every pore. Jessica squeezed his arm. "It's such an honor for him to come for you, darling." Or perhaps he's here to beg, I thought. I knew exactly why James Harrison had agreed to attend, because he'd been trying for weeks to secure a meeting with me about Sterling's potential acquisition. "That's wonderful," I murmured, hiding my amusement behind my champagne glass. Marcus gave me a condescending smile. "Try not to embarrass me when he arrives, okay? This is an important night for my career." I said nothing. I didn't need to. Karma was already on its way. Moments later, the soft hum of conversation in the room dimmed. Heads turned toward the entrance. James Harrison had arrived. Tall, poised, with silver gray hair and the kind of presence that demanded attention. He made his way through the crowd. Marcus immediately straightened, his confidence radiating. Here he is, he whispered to Jessica, then started toward the man. But before he could take more than 2 steps, Harrison's sharp eyes scanned the room and landed on me. His face lit up in recognition. "Miss Mitchell," he exclaimed, breaking into a wide smile. "I had no idea you'd be here." The room fell into stunned silence. Marcus froze. Jessica blinked in confusion. My mother looked as if she'd forgotten how to breathe. "Ma'am," Harrison continued warmly, striding directly toward me. "We've been trying to arrange a meeting for weeks. I didn't expect to run into you at one of my employees' weddings." I smiled and extended my hand. "Neither did I, James. It's good to finally meet in person." Whispers rippled through the crowd. Marcus's expression twisted into something between confusion and panic. "Wait, what?" he stammered. Harrison blinked, realization dawning. "Hold on, Marcus is your brother?" "Yes," I said smoothly, glancing at Marcus, though he didn't know about my position until just now. The silence that followed was almost theatrical. My mother's champagne glass trembled in her hand. My father's jaw slackened. Marcus's face turned ghostly pale. Jessica's fingers slipped, her wine glass shattering on the marble floor with a sharp crack. The sound echoed across the ballroom. Harrison looked from Marcus to me. "Your sister is the Sophie Mitchell, the founder and CEO of Aurora Consulting?" "That's right," I said simply. "The same one your company's been trying to reach." Gasps spread like wildfire. Cameras subtly lifted. Guests whispering to each other in disbelief. My mother recovered first, her voice high and sugary. "Sophie, darling, why didn't you tell us about your position?" I took another sip of champagne. "You never asked, Mom. You were too busy talking about Marcus's promotions to care about my little consulting job." Marcus found his voice, his tone shaky. "Wait, merger? What merger?" I turned to Harrison. "I believe you wanted to discuss Sterling's financial difficulties and the potential acquisition by Aurora Consulting?" Marcus's mouth fell open. You're buying Sterling?" I met his eyes, considering it, though after tonight, I might need to rethink that decision. The color drained from his face. "That would make you my boss." I smiled faintly. "Yes, life's funny, isn't it?" My father finally burst forward, red-faced. "Now just hold on. You can't humiliate your brother like this on his wedding day." Harrison cleared his throat. "Mr. Mitchell, I assure you, your daughter is one of the most powerful executives in this industry. Aurora Consulting is the largest advisory firm in the country. We've been pursuing this partnership for months." The crowd had grown utterly silent now, every pair of eyes fixed on us. I looked at Marcus. For years, he'd belittled me, laughed at my ambitions, and used me as his family's example of mediocrity. And now, he stood there stripped of all his pride, realizing that insignificant sister he mocked was about to own the company he worked for. "This wasn't my plan," I said softly, setting my empty glass on a nearby tray. "But I suppose some truths reveal themselves when they're meant to." And as the orchestra resumed its melody and whispers followed us like shadows, I walked away from my brother, my family, and the life that once made me feel small, knowing that for the first time, they finally saw me clearly. And this moment, unexpected, unplanned, was only the beginning of what was to come. This was the man who had told me 10 years ago that I was dreaming too big when I said I wanted to start my own company, the man who had used every connection he had to help Marcus climb the corporate ladder while telling me to be realistic about my goals. But the money," my mother stammered. "All those times you said you couldn't help with family expenses." "Oh, you mean like the $50,000 you borrowed from my savings for Marcus's MBA?" I kept my voice calm, but I could feel years of resentment bubbling up. "The money you never paid back because, and I quote, Marcus needs it more for his future." Jessica stepped forward, her wedding dress rustling. "Marcus, darling, did you know about this? About her company?" "Of course not," he snapped, then tried to compose himself. She's always been jealous of my success. This must be some kind of mistake." Harrison raised an eyebrow. The only mistake, Mr. Mitchell, was apparently your understanding of your sister's position in the business world. Aurora Consulting's annual revenue is more than Sterling Industries has made in the past 5 years combined. The ballroom had gone completely silent. Every guest was watching our family drama unfold like it was a live theater production. Marcus's perfect wedding was quickly becoming the talk of the corporate world, but not for the reasons he'd hoped. I think, I said quietly, we should continue this discussion somewhere more private. I nodded to Harrison. James, would you mind giving me a moment with my family? He nodded graciously and stepped away. I led my family to a private room off the main ballroom, closing the door behind us. The silence was deafening. How dare you? Marcus finally exploded. This is my wedding day. You couldn't just let me have this one thing? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. One thing? You've had everything handed to you your entire life. Dad's connections got you into Sterling. Mom's jewelry paid for your MBA. My savings funded your startup attempts. Meanwhile, I built something real, something lasting, completely on my own. We were trying to protect you. My mother insisted, wringing her hands. The business world is so cruel to women. No, Mom, you weren't protecting me, you were dismissing me. Every achievement, every milestone, you brushed them all aside because they didn't fit your narrative of who I should be. My father stepped forward, his business instincts finally kicking in. Now, Sophie, let's be reasonable. We're family. Surely we can work something out that benefits everyone. You mean now that you know I'm successful, you want to be part of it? I shook my head. The merger with Sterling was a courtesy to Harrison. He's a good CEO dealing with a bad board. But after tonight, I met Marcus's eyes. I think it's time for some changes. You can't do this, Marcus whispered, his arrogance finally cracking. My position, my future. Your position was always built on sand. Marcus, you've lost 3 major clients this year alone. The only reason you still have a job is because of your connection to Jessica's family. I straightened my simple navy dress. But don't worry, when Aurora acquires Sterling, we'll find a position suited to your actual qualifications. Jessica let out a small sob. My father won't let this happen. He's on the board. Your father, I said gently, called me last week to make sure the merger goes through. Sterling Industries is drowning in debt, and Aurora Consulting is their only lifeline. The gravity of the situation finally seemed to hit Marcus. His legs gave out, and he sank into a nearby chair. All this time, he murmured, while we were mocking you, you were building an empire. I tried to tell you, all of you, so many times, but you never listened. You were too busy planning Marcus's next promotion, too focused on maintaining the perfect family image. I moved toward the door. Well, now you know the truth, and things are going to change. Sophie, please, my mother called out as I reached for the handle. We're still family. I paused, my hand on the door. Family? I turned back to face them. Family supports each other. Family listens. Family doesn't mock and dismiss and tear down. You weren't family when I was struggling. You don't get to claim family now that I'm successful. With that, I opened the door and walked back into the ballroom, leaving them to process the new reality of our family dynamic. Harrison was waiting for me near the bar, a knowing look in his eyes. Shall we discuss the merger terms, Ms. Mitchell? He asked quietly. I nodded, a small smile playing at my lips. Yes, James, I think it's time to reshape Sterling Industries, starting with the management structure. As we walked away to discuss business, I could feel my family's eyes on my back. The simple navy dress I'd chosen to seem understated now felt like armor. They had spent years underestimating me, dismissing my achievements, treating me like the family disappointment. But now, they knew exactly who I was. And this was just the beginning of their education. The weeks following Marcus's wedding were exactly what I expected. A hurricane of family drama, desperate attempts at reconciliation, and not-so-subtle manipulation. My phone buzzed constantly with messages. Sophie, darling, let's discuss this like family. Mom, your brother is devastated. How could you do this to him? Dad, we need to talk about my position at Sterling. Marcus, my father wants to meet with you. Jessica. I ignored them all. I had a merger to complete. The morning of the Sterling Industries board meeting, I stood in my office on the top floor of Aurora Consulting's headquarters, adjusting my suit jacket. This wasn't the simple navy dress from the wedding. Today, I wore a tailored black Armani suit that screamed power and authority. No more hiding. My assistant, Emma, knocked on the door. "Your brother is here again, Ms. Mitchell. Third time this week." I sighed, checking my watch. "Send him in. Might as well deal with this before the board meeting." Marcus walked in looking disheveled, a far cry from his usual polished appearance. His designer suit was wrinkled, his tie slightly askew. "Sophie, please, you have to listen to me." "I'm listening," I said, sitting behind my desk. "Though I'm not sure what's left to say after your 20 voicemails and 37 texts." He ran a hand through his hair. "Look, I know I was awful at the wedding. I know I've been dismissive of your work, but you can't just take over Sterling Industries. My whole life is there. Your whole life," I repeated slowly, "was handed to you. Every opportunity, every promotion, every success, it was all arranged by Dad or bought with someone else's money, usually mine. That's not fair." "Not fair?" I stood up, placing both hands on my desk. "What's not fair was using my savings for your MBA without asking. What's not fair was mocking my tiny firm while I built an empire. What's not fair was treating me like a failure while I succeeded beyond anything you could imagine." "I'm sorry," he whispered, and for the first time, I thought he might actually mean it. "Sorry doesn't change the past, Marcus. And it doesn't change what's about to happen." I checked my watch again. "The board meeting starts in an hour. I suggest you prepare yourself." "What's going to happen to me?" I sat back down, studying him. "That depends on you. Aurora Consulting rewards competence, not connections. If you want to keep a position at Sterling after the merger, you'll have to earn it, actually earn it." His face paled. "You mean starting from the bottom, learning the business properly? No shortcuts. No special treatment." I held up a hand as he started to protest. "It's that or severance. Your choice." Just then, my office door opened again. This time it was my parents, barging in despite Emma's protests. "Sophie," my mother started, her voice quivering, "we've been trying to reach you for weeks." "I've been busy," I replied coolly. "Running my tiny firm takes a lot of work." My father stepped forward, his face set in what I recognized as his negotiation expression. "Honey, we need to talk about this rationally. You can't just destroy your brother's career over some past misunderstandings." "Misunderstandings?" I laughed. "Is that what we're calling years of dismissal and disrespect now?" "We made mistakes," my mother admitted, wringing her hands. "But we're family. Surely that counts for something." I opened my desk drawer and pulled out an old photo, the last family portrait we'd taken before I started Aurora Consulting. In it, I stood slightly apart from the others, wearing a simple dress while they were all in designer clothes. Even then, I'd been an outsider in my own family. Family counted for something when I needed support starting my business. It counted when I was working 18-hour days building my company. It counted all those times you chose to celebrate Marcus's minor promotions while ignoring my major achievements. I set the photo down. But now it's just business. A knock at my door interrupted us. Emma poked her head in. "Ms. Mitchell, the board is gathering." I stood up, straightening my jacket. "Thank you, Emma. I'll be right there." I turned to my family. "You're welcome to stay and watch the meeting on the monitors in the waiting area. I think it'll be educational." The Sterling Industries boardroom fell silent as I walked in. 15 pairs of eyes followed me to the head of the table, where James Harrison stood to greet me. "Ms. Mitchell, thank you for joining us. Shall we begin?" The next hour was a master class in corporate restructuring. I laid out Aurora's plans for Sterling, department by department, position by position. By the end, several board members were nodding appreciatively while others looked shell-shocked. And finally, I concluded, we'll be implementing a complete overhaul of the management structure. No more positions based on connections rather than competence. Through the glass walls, I could see my family watching from the waiting area. Marcus had sunk into a chair, his head in his hands. My parents stood rigid, finally understanding the full scope of my power. After the meeting, Harrison approached me. "Brilliant presentation, as always. Though I have to ask, your brother's position will be handled fairly?" I assured him. If he's willing to work for it, there's a place for him, starting in entry-level sales. Harrison nodded approvingly. You're more generous than many would be in your position. This isn't about revenge, I said, gathering my papers. It's about building something lasting, something real. When I walked out to the waiting area, my family was still there. They looked different now, smaller somehow, less intimidating than they'd seemed all those years ago. So that's it? Marcus asked quietly. Everything changes just like that? Everything changed years ago, Marcus. You just didn't notice because you were too busy looking down on me. I turned to my parents. The company will be sending over new employment contracts tomorrow. I suggest you all read them carefully. Sophie. My mother stepped forward, tears in her eyes. We were wrong about you. So wrong. Can't we start over? I thought about all the dinners where they'd ignored my achievements, all the family events where they treated me like an afterthought, all the times they'd prioritized Marcus's ambitions over my dreams. Starting over would mean forgetting the past, I said finally, and I don't want to forget. Those years of dismissal and disrespect taught me valuable lessons about self-reliance and determination. They made me who I am. And who are you? My father asked softly. I'm the woman who built $1 billion company while you were all too busy mocking her tiny firm to notice. I'm the CEO who just acquired the company you thought was the pinnacle of success. And I'm the daughter who finally stopped seeking your approval and found her own path instead. I started walking toward the elevator, then paused and looked back. The contracts will be here tomorrow. Your choice whether to sign them or not. But either way, things will never go back to how they were. As the elevator doors closed, I caught one last glimpse of my family, standing there in the waiting room of the company I built, finally seeing me clearly for the first time. That night, in my penthouse office, I took out my grandmother's locket, the one piece of family history I truly cherished. Inside was a small note she'd written years ago. Success isn't about who believes in you at the end. It's about believing in yourself from the beginning. I smiled, thinking about how far I'd come from that overlooked daughter in the family portrait. Marcus's wedding had just been the beginning. Now everyone knew exactly who I was, not the family disappointment, but the force that had reshaped their entire world. And somehow, that felt better than any revenge could.